Have you ever heard the phrase servant leadership? Today, we're getting tactical with this. We're not just talking about the big, warm-hearted feeling of servant leadership. We're talking about real, tried and true processes that you can apply into your practice today so that you can increase your income, impact, and freedom. And we're doing that with two powerful leaders from Metro. Metro is a huge company with 500 employees. We're talking to Vanessa Labadie and Christina Pagel, and they are going to share with you how they have taken in their own playbooks to increase their company's impact and scale with the right culture. And you're going to get to steal from their playbook right now. Let's go. I am so excited about this topic that has changed my career that I know you guys live at Metro every day. But first, let's set the stage, Vanessa. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I have a background in the restaurant industry. And I moved from the restaurant industry into the hospital industry, kitchens, and then I moved into pediatric therapy. I started out as a behavior technician, and then I moved into different roles where I had one facility, and then now I have multiple facilities. So I do operational things. I don't treat anymore.
And what do you love about that?
Oh, honestly, the versatility. Every day is something different. It challenges me. I think that's what I like the most about it, is that there is a challenge, because I love to work under stress. But
you mentioned that in our pre-interview too, like this whole idea that like you like stress. There was a study that I read that talks about the people who have heart attacks versus people who don't, who have the exact same stress levels. And the only differentiator they could find is one group chose to enjoy, like they stated, oh, I love stress. And the other group's like, no, I hate it. This is hard. So it's interesting. You're going to live a long and happy life.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
All right, Christina, what about yourself? Let's set the table a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also, like Vanessa, started in a different industry. I've worked in retail and sales. I've also been a recruiter. I moved into my position at Metro, kind of completely by chance. I was, hired on as a temporary receptionist to start here, but moved up quickly through adding on sales and operations. So now I'm the director of operations here at Metro. And having never worked in the healthcare field before, our owner took a real big chance on me, but saw something in me that she really
Shout
liked.
out to the owner.
Yeah, Lori Schaefer.
We love her.
She's amazing. Yes.
Yeah, she's with us, even though she's not technically here in the room. But let me ask you, what do you love about that, Christina?
So I love being able to support the people who are serving our patients and our clients, like the kiddos and the families, being able to give our teams all the tools that they need to do their job efficiently, starting, from facilities to operations, logistics, scheduling, all of those things, anything administrative. I am not clinical. I don't have a clinical background. So this is my way of being able to support and provide those services to those kiddos by having team members like Vanessa and her colleagues to being able to do all of the things behind the scenes that make providers and our clinicians able to provide the services that our kiddos need.
You like being that quiet hero in the background, really helping things move forward.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know what Metro is, just a brief description, give us what you guys do and how big you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. We are Metro EHS Pediatric Therapy. We have 17 locations. Oh, 18 now. Sorry. 18 opening up, and we're right now in Metro Detroit. We do pediatric therapy for kids for ABA, speech, OT, PT, mental health. We are a completely collaborative environment. All of those services happen under one roof. We believe in early intervention. We believe intensive care. And our services are all play-based. So we work with the little kiddos, and their job is play. So our job is to help them do that and give them the tools that they need to move on to the next stages of life.
I love that. And how many employees do you guys have, Vanessa?
Oh, 500.
Yeah.
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 So this is a great thing for people who are tuning in, who are like, because from the title, they're recognizing like, yeah, I want to build a team that loves each other. And I can say before we even get into what that style is and what that looks like, I got to experience it firsthand at the Rockstar Summit 3 weeks ago when you guys were in town. And it was borderline a cult where everyone was wearing the same clothes. Like everyone at the party wore the same costume, but they were like, they had each other's backs. They contributed massive value, and they were all about producing this ripple effect that I felt. And it was like that. Your company to me has embodied what I am wanting other people to experience, which is this thing called a work team that becomes a work family. Yep. And really, really gets into it. So we're talking about leadership style and how our leadership style is what facilitates and creates that. And both of you guys mentioned before we record how previously in different experiences, whether it was restaurant or retail, you had experienced different leadership styles. But the style that we're talking about that you guys have landed on, servant leadership. Yep. So Vanessa, my first question to you. What is servant leadership? If someone hears that and they've never heard it before, or if they've heard it a million times and they're like, when you say that, is it just a flowery term? Define for what it means to you what servant leadership is.
Yeah, servant leadership is pouring into everything. So I'm a really big believer that leadership is not 9 to 5, that it's all of the time. And so I want to make sure that I'm available for my team, up or down, right? So pouring into your staff, supporting them, holding them accountable, making sure that they want to come to work. Because, sometimes people get butterflies on Sunday night and they're like, I don't want to do that. Me, I want to go to work on Sunday. So I want my staff to feel the same way.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard the phrase of culture. A good definition for culture is the way your team feels in their stomach on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. And you hit upon that idea that you're excited to be there. Skeptics to the servant leadership concept. Because what you just said, Vanessa, was that people who are servant leaders are serving the people underneath mm-hmm. them on the org chart. Mm-hmm. So there's a sense of equality in the entire company. Not one person is more important than another person, but there is command lines in order to disseminate changes in the company, communication, direct reports for training, and, all those different elements. But Christina, for people who are skeptical of this idea called servant leadership, let me ask you like a devil's advocate question. Yeah. Isn't that just like coddling people? Isn't that just like placating to what they want first instead of what's best for the company?
I know where people would think that, but it's really not, because I think when you talk about service, serving anybody in any capacity is, it's give and take, right? There has to be, Vanessa mentioned accountability. So you're being able to serve somebody, but that starts with a relationship, right? You have to have a relationship, and that relationship starts with being able to trust each other, right? So the opposite of, if somebody's like, well, isn't that just, coddling somebody, giving everybody they want? No, because what I'm doing is I'm serving somebody to say, these are the things that I need from you, and these are the things that I'm going to give to you in order to do the things that I need you to do, right? So when I'm asking Vanessa to do a task or anything, like I am being able to serve her by coaching her, giving her the tools that she needs to do, giving her feedback, doing the whole relationship cycle, the whole communication cycle. And what that does is that gives her independence on how to do the things she needs to do. But then also it's coming back to me because she knows that I'm going to coach her to the next step, right? So, if you think of servant leadership as, just being, coddling or being like a yes person or being walked over or something like that. No, because there's a strength in service, right? You have to be able to know what you can give and what you're not willing to accept, right? So it's, because the whole basis of servant leadership is that trust factor. And you have to, in order to have trust, you have to have communication and you have to have that give and take. It's like in any relationship, right? Whether it's, personal or professional, it all starts with trust. So if somebody thinks that servant leadership is just giving, right? The opposite would be, do you just want, do you want a dictator, a manager who is super harsh, super demanding, and you feel like you don't have a voice? Like what's the development? What's the benefit of that sort of development, right? So with servant leadership, it's the communication and understanding of that trust factor. So the more you're able to communicate with each other, the more you're able to develop each other. And that's probably where I would say, it's not about being, soft, subservient. Yeah.
I think,
yeah. Because
so there's servants, but then there's subservient.
Right.
And I think that's the distinction you're trying to make here, is this idea that like, it's what you said in my own terms is that there's an initial foundation, a relationship on a win-win agreement, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, exactly.
And so from there, when the win-win agreement is there and the relationship becomes the priority, the relationship of the priority for the person's long-term success, not the personal relationship.
Right.
We're talking about the relationship between the person and the entity or company.
Exactly.
So as servant leaders, we are servant to the relationship of the person and how they are experiencing the company and vice versa.
Right.
It's not, but there is a personal relationship that connects to that as well.
Right.
But you're saying the foundation is that like win-win agreement between the company and the person and how we serve that entity,
right?
The relation, the connection point between the two.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because there's always somebody else to serve, right? I'm, just because I'm trying to be a servant leader to Vanessa and she's trying to be a servant leader to her team, right? Ultimately, we both serve the organization that we work for, right? We want it to be successful. Yeah. We want, we have that buy-in to be able to say, we're doing the things that we're doing because we want Metro EHS to be successful, right? So, and we want Metro EHS to be successful because we want our kiddos to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. The whole reason that we do all of these things is for the people that we serve, from a community standpoint, from a client standpoint. Right. So ultimately, by being a servant leader to Vanessa, I am better serving the children that we see.
It's interesting, too, because it feels like the way you're describing it is that on the org board, there's direct reports that have, authority. Yeah. Like they're there as mentors in a servant leadership way. Mm-hmm. And they're still holding those command lines and setting standards and upholding those through metrics. But it feels like the way you describe it is that the servant leader can be either one of those people in that relationship.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Like it's the way that you describe it, because it feels symbiotic in the sense that they're serving each other because they're helping each other help the kiddos, right?
Yeah, that's our mission. I feel like at our company, it's so easy to be a servant leader because our teams, everybody around us is doing it. It's almost harder to be like
not
a dictator, to not be a servant leader, because then you're like, well, you're not even on the same path as the whole team. And it's just kind of the culture here, right? I'm giving to everybody. Christina's giving to everybody. My team's giving to everybody. That's what we try to develop. And I think we're pretty successful at it.
Yeah,
absolutely. The culture, I think what's great is that when the culture becomes accepted and trained into people and it aligns for them, which is the biggest component, then they start holding each other accountable through group accountability. And what we've learned in multiple studies is that organizations that have their people hold each other accountable are the ones that produce independent, highly profitable, and impactful teams and score the highest on net promoter scores for happiness at work. So this whole thing is really fascinating to me because, again, it feels very flowery on the outside. Healthcare companies pick this up better than most. But in my networking outside of healthcare, initially it was seen as kind of silly. Mm-hmm. And then, honestly, a bunch of men were thinking it was a sign of weakness because there was some feminine angle to it or whatever. It's like, this is literally the way it works. And in at least my experience and seeing your company as a model of this is where people really are there to serve each other. Because let me ask, I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask for the audience. In your company, is it appropriate for a junior to hold a direct report accountable? Like, obviously the direct report can hold the person in the command line accountable, but does that accountability go both ways?
I think so.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does. I could 100% say, "Hey, Christina," and she would say, "Oh, okay, let's work on this," or whatever, like,
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
you messed up. It's okay. Right. Right.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
is that's like we're all holding each other accountable to the piece. Now, obviously, we're not saying, when we say that the person on the command line going to their direct report, holding them accountable, isn't a matter of like, hey, listen, you're telling me to do this thing, and let me hold you accountable as to why I'm not going to do that. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we've agreed as a company to execute in these values. And if someone starts stepping out of line, it's everyone's responsibility to hold accountability lines in some way, shape, or form, in depending on what it is.
Yeah.
So the big question, Vanessa, for people who are listening to this, the reason I'm targeting you for this question is because something you said earlier is that, like, maybe we still need to define servant leadership a little bit better. But what I think would be useful is you explain to the audience how you changed your leadership style. Because you said before Christina jumped on, I used to have a different leadership style, but I've adopted the servant leadership style because of how effective it is. So what was that journey like for you?
I was very micromanaging, like, just let me do it. I'm going to do it better. Number one, it was exhausting me because you have a team for a reason. And I think I flexed my style after I started getting burnt out on being a micromanager. I'm like, what can I do? And I've always been like heart on my sleeve, help people, but I didn't know that I could make it effective at work. I was just doing it at home. And so I just started slowly but surely. I have this mantra, 5% rule. We know 5% of anything that's going on in anybody's life. You were driving down the street and somebody cuts you off and you get upset. Think to yourself, they could be going to see their dying mother. Your employee's late every Wednesday and you're like, this is just driving me insane. But you have to think to yourself, what's going on in that? How can I come 5 minutes early? So I think I've flexed my role by just utilizing my 5% rule, where 5% of what's going on at anybody's life at any given time, and you can't make an immediate decision based off of the first 5% of knowing them.
Okay, so what were the main components then? Like, what did it look like differently? You described micromanaging to begin with, so now what does it look like? As a servant leader, what does it look like?
My staff managing me. They tell me, like, hey, we want to do this. They're giving me ideas. We bounce ideas off each other. We talk about what would work. And I like to ask a lot of questions to my staff to get them to that point. Like, I already will have the thought in my mind, like, this is the way it needs to go. But I'll ask them the questions to get them to that point, to, like, realize, okay, you're right, this is what we need to do, without me having to say and just give, direction. I get them to that point so they can realize the realization of what it is.
So I love that. And I still hear the critic in my own head from how I've heard it from others is like, how is that not the people running the company? How is that different than them setting the standards for the company and not vice versa?
I think it's because it's human. Like, servant leadership is human, and we're all human. So there's a part of you subconsciously maybe that takes your leader pouring into you and developing you.
Yeah.
I think there's a part of you that takes it subconsciously and it's like, okay, well, I need to do better, or be better, or work harder, or whatever it is. For me personally, I want to be held accountable, and I want my staff to kind of be the same way. Like, let me hold you accountable because I want to do better.
Yeah, I get that. Christina, you were going to say something too, I guess.
So, sorry. I'm like, I can't wait to talk.
No.
So one of the things that when you think of servant leadership, if you think of it as a learning leadership path, that's where you can, it's if you always, like Vanessa said, I want to do better. I want to be better. I want to keep improving. You can only do that when you allow yourself to learn. And sometimes you've done the thing so many times, whatever it is, over and over and over, what's going to happen, right? The path that's you make a decision. This is going to be the end result. Well, if you allow somebody else in to that decision-making process, they might come up with a completely different idea. Mm-hmm. They might come up with a completely different solution that because of all of the years that you've already done this and you've seen it play out, that you're welcoming more ideas. And that's the portion of the servant leadership process that is probably the hardest from a leader who is always the loudest in the room, always the one making the decision, always ones that have all the answers. But when you allow somebody else into their decision-making process, you allow yourself and your team to feel more invested in that process itself, right? So if you say, if I have a problem to solve and I go to Vanessa and the rest of our team, we have 6 regional operations managers. That's what Vanessa's role is. And I say, hey team, we need a solution to this problem, right? I already have 4 in my head because that's just the way my brain works. Vanessa has probably 4 and 3 of them are the exact same, right? But those one other one that might work better. But then what you do is you get a buy-in from that learning process. If it's only ever me or one person making all of the decisions and doing all of the things, then you just get,
compliance.
Mindless worker bees, right? You don't want that. You want people to be invested. And if you can allow them the learning portion of it, and again, that's the give and take, right? Service back and forth, it's learning back and forth to being able to say, hey, we're going to make this decision. We're going to create this process, right? And say, here team, create the process because you're the ones that are going to have to do it. I don't have to do the process. I just have to say yes or no to it. You guys are the ones living it, right? And a lot of times, even when we take things from an operations standpoint to the regional managers, then down to the people that report to them, they pass it down again because it's like, it doesn't matter to us what the process is. You guys are the ones that have to do it every day. So let's make a process that works for you guys. So then when the execution of that process or that policy or that new communication, whatever it is, they already know about it and they know why, right? That's one of the hardest decisions to make, or the reasons that things change in organizations. If something changes, people always want to know the why. Give the why. Well, if they're part of the decision-making process, they already know the why. They know all of the background that goes into it. It's not just, hey, we're going to do this and do it. It's, this is the whole reason and this is the whole process. And it becomes more like second nature, and it makes the job easier ultimately for everybody along the way.
I think what we do really well too is kind of like a anthill, right? Information moving down, information moving out. If it moves down and the information doesn't quite work, we can always move it back up and fix it. Yeah. So, there's been times where things have happened. Okay, it gets down to the people who are actually executing. Hey, this isn't working. Okay, boom, it can go right back up. We can rewire it and send it right back down. And it works just like an anthill. Like everybody's working.
That's great. I love it. When I hear servant leader, here's how I hear this example of a team solving a problem, is that the leader is a servant to the team in the sense that he or she brings the problem with transparency and like a vision of an outcome. And they're serving them with like, hey, this is a problem that's affecting all of us or some part of our company. And the service is trusting the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an extension of trust to say, here's this problem. What do you guys want to do about it? That's the service. But ironically, the service is really inviting them to serve the company.
Yes.
Which feels personal as an owner or a leader because otherwise it's our job to solve. But I think that's the symbiotic nature of servant leadership, is that the leader serves the group by trusting them with the details of the company so that they can turn around and build something better than they would have done on their own. And I'm going to give a real quick story as an example of this. I used to survey, part of that anthill communication that Vanessa's talking about. Every quarter, we would do a start, stop, keep exercise where we would ask our employees, what should we start doing as a company, stop doing as a company, and keep doing as a company? Easily one of my top 10 favorite business tips to ask people to do. Every quarter, gather that information, and then you'd have a town hall where we would discuss some of the elements. And for 3 quarters in a row, people were like, the worst part of the company is that we have lots of time off, but no coverage. You're generous in your time off, but we don't know how to take it off. And the problem was this is the problem. is that our company was in Arizona, was in Arizona when I owned it. So we had 4 locations. During the summer months, our patient load would drop by a third or more. And so we had this really weird, wonky thing. And I tried solving it for years. And I didn't look at it as servant leadership, guys. For me, it looked like exasperation. I got everyone together on a Tuesday night, bought them pizza, and just said, listen, you guys have for almost a year been telling me this is the worst part of working here. I hear you. And by the way, I realize now that was me serving them. I hear you. That's serving them. It doesn't feel like service to hear people, but I really heard them. And it wasn't the outlying person who complained who I should have fired 2 years ago. It was the collective. Yeah. When we're serving the individual, that is an essential part of it. I just want people who are listening to go, okay, servant leadership is serving the one, the collective, and the company / myself. Like that's where we're at. So I just said, I don't know what to do. Let's just talk about it. And I was amazed how I was able to sit down and be quiet because they had a lot to say about it. I don't like it because of this. I'm like, yeah, I already heard that. So you get your couple of people who are just like, yeah, I hear that. Thank you for, what do we want to do about it? It changed their mindset. Well, we could try this. We could try that. We could try this. And over the next 2 hours, I watched all the providers. This was just the providers in my company stitch together a solution. And they basically said, what if we hired one person whose whole job it was to cover vacations? And then in the summertime, they would have, they would have a full-time job in the winter when we were super busy with the snowbirds. And then once the summertime comes, then they'll just cover everyone's vacations until the next winter. And I said, you know what, mathematically that makes sense from my end because that's actually it's a one full-time FTE would cover it perfectly. I said, the problem is that if they're working full-time in the winter, they can't cover vacations. What do we do? It was one of the newer employees. He's like, CPA firms don't let people have vacation the first quarter of the year. He's like, why don't we do the same thing where none of us can take time off?
Yeah.
If I had suggested that as an owner,
yep.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How dare?
Yeah.
Oh, but when they suggested it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And I said, "What's cool about that?" And then I did chime in. I said, "You know what, guys? If you do that, if you're willing to do that, what we can do is, why don't we get together twice a year and project the next 6 months of vacations, and then you guys can all work out coverage and that way you have for the whole year in advance, you already know when you're taking your time off. That would make this, and they were like, great job, equal member of the team. And for 3 years before I sold, we never had a problem with coverage ever again. And it was so cool because as an owner, we made way more money because I never had these gaps where people were just off and not enough coverage and patient care was missed. So to your point, I think I just want to highlight that this only works when you have a team of aligned people to begin with.
Yeah.
Servant leadership. What is servant leader? Because honestly, there were days if I had brought this to an earlier version of my team when I was hiring just anyone with a pulse, they would have been like, I don't know. They wouldn't have cared.
Yeah.
They would have been victim and upset about it. Vanessa, you're wanting to say something.
I think it's a good thing if you find the outlier of the group because then you just know they just not somebody who's going to be on the team, right? And that's okay. Not everybody has to be on our team.
So you're saying that's a benefit of trying this and having it fail is that you realize, oh, these aren't the right people then because the right people will say thank you.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. And that's one of the other benefits of having that sort of process, especially in the servant leader decision making process, is that when you do have to make a decision that is, very little information or very quick and, maybe, you have to change paths really quickly, your team will trust you to do that without the explanation, without the why. It's a long road to get there. But right now I know I can go to my team and say, hey, I had to make a decision. It had to be quick. This is what it is. I need you guys, this is what's going to happen. And they'll be like, yep, no problem. It's 100%. So because I've built that, I've involved them enough in the decision-making process that they can do that when they can't be a part of that process for whatever reasons, because there are decisions that we have to make at a leadership level, at a high executive level, that everybody can't know about right away. That's just the nature
Yeah.
of business. Things have to happen. And when I do, and when I have to give it to my team, it's like, this happened. This is what the decision was. This is what we're going to do moving forward, starting now. Then they know that it's, because they'll know I'll fight for them from the opposite. So like I will give all of the input from the decision making from a leadership standpoint to say, hey, I'm going to protect my team. I'm going to do everything I can to make whatever decision process has to happen, in the leadership room when it does filter down. So like you said, you couldn't have done that before. The decision that you had to make, you couldn't have brought that to you. But as soon as you have that servant leadership style and that
Trust.
that trust rolling, you have that basis of trust, then when you do have to make those one-time decisions, they feel less scary, right, for your team.
Because they just know. Because they can.
They know.
I just want to highlight the best book I've ever read. I said this from stage a couple weeks ago, is The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. You talked about speed, you talked about trust in both of those examples, Christina, and I think you're just highlighting for people who don't know this, like, yeah, man, you can move a lot faster because when you're in those thicker situations where you lean on your team to serve the company and create something better, they know it's like, oh, he or she must have a reason for it then.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that works too, like at my level, like my staff know that I'm going to be doing the exact same thing Christina does for us. I'm advocating and whatever needs to happen, and they trust me. So if I say, hey guys, we're doing A, B, and C, same thing. Okay.
Yeah, I think people are getting an idea of what servant leadership really is now because it's about involving them. And for me, it was about laziness. I was like, I just don't want to solve this on my own because I know how it. I always held deep enough personal connections with each of my people where I could roll things out very painfully. Like I'd talk to each person or like I would make the decision and just deal with the people who didn't like it afterwards. Here's a common scenario most people are familiar with. Someone in the company decides it's time to change the EHR or EMR. Yeah. They go in there, the owner does the research. They're doing it behind the scenes because they're almost afraid when they don't have trust with their team. They're afraid of what the team's going to do to make that process more painful. But what happens is the owner makes it painful because they go pick one without anyone even knowing and saying, hey guys, in a lunch meeting, next month we're changing to this new EMR, this new software. And don't worry, they're going to implement and all these things. And people are just like, versus saying, hey guys, I want to tell you, because when you ask your people what's not great in the company, they'll listen to you in return.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know what? I'm hearing people aren't loving the EMR, but what you guys don't see is the billing team hates the EMR. Or whatever. It's like there's reasons to change, and I'm really struggling with it. And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of options that are coming up that I'm getting excited about. But what do you guys think? Like, that is the servant leadership model, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think for one step above that is instead of just the owner kind of saying like, hey, I looked into these and this is why. The owner says, here, look into these and tell me which one you like.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. It was like, hey, I don't love this EMR. What do you guys want to do? Well, let's look at other EMRs. Oh, great. Let's do that then.
Yeah.
And let them investigate them and let the team pick.
And it gets your buy-in.
But like letting all members, like letting the billing team and okay, great. If we're going to do this, let's set it up to where everyone gets a voice. And ultimately, it works out better.
Yeah.
So does no one ever get fired then in a servant leadership model?
No, they do.
They absolutely do. Yeah, they
accountable.
absolutely do. Yeah.
Right. You still have to hold people accountable.
Yeah.
But we're serving them.
Right. Well, sometimes people just don't fit on the team, right? And that's okay. And you know that immediately. So that's what happens, I think, more often than not, is that if somebody is not, doesn't adopt our style, then maybe they just...
Okay. So if people are let go or fired in a servant leadership model, is there difference in how it happens, Christina? Like take a different leadership style versus a servant leadership style. What would you say is the most common way people get let go versus a servant leader? What does it look like?
So in my experience, when you're not in a servant leadership style, it's because of a violation. You made a mistake. This is what happened. You violated a policy. I'm sorry, I got to let you go. Right. In a servant leadership conversation, it usually becomes hey, something's not right here. We're not getting the outcomes that we need because you're not invested. What's going on with you? Where is the disconnect between what I'm asking you to do and what you're being able to produce, right? So whether you're, it might be personal. So many times, especially in roles where you don't have, being a clinician, you have so many hours you have to bill, so many notes you have to sign, so many things that you have to do. Being in non-clinical roles, like our outcomes are a lot different. Or what I'm like, this is our head count, this is our, this is how much our marketing budget was, this is what our sales impact, these are the referrals that we got. So when we say, I'm asking you to do something and you're not being able to produce, what is it that's going on that's not, where's the disconnect there? And sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's professional, sometimes it's not on, people are just not, it's not the right management style for them. There are some people who just, they need to be, I'm going to tell you what to do. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it, right? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they don't want to participate in it. And you can work with that type of team member, but they serve a very different role and they're not on that leadership path, right? If they're not giving into the team, then they're not ultimately going to be producing the most outcomes. Most of the time, people leave on their own. I very rarely have to fire people. Like they don't come in, I don't say like, listen, I got to let you go today, right? That's not what they do. What they do is they know that they're not part of the team. They know they're not in the group. They're not part of what I'm doing, and it's not everybody's style, right? And I'm okay with that. And that's the hardest part, I think, with this, with new people who are trying to adopt servant leadership. There are some people who will just say, I don't like it. I don't trust her. I don't like her decision making.
It's too touchy-feely for me.
Yep. Nope. Can't do it. That's okay. Right. I understand. No hard feelings. And best of luck with all of your future endeavors, right? Mm-hmm. So I accept more resignations than I ever have to fire people, because
that's powerful stuff.
Yeah, because they usually come to me and say, "Hey, I'm not happy," and it's never a surprise. It's never once in the 25 years that I've been doing this. I can probably count twice where I was just like, "Oh my God, you're not happy here? I can't believe it," right? Because they come to me and they say, "Hey, I found another job." Okay, I understand. We haven't really been on the same path for quite some time. And it's not and sometimes I'll even, hey, I have a recommendation for you. There's things that I think you'd be really good in a position like X, Y, and Z. Maybe this isn't the right path for you. So being able to let that go from a personal standpoint, taking it personally, saying, oh, I don't, at the exit interviews that I read from the people who have left my team are, I could almost list them directly of what they're going to say they didn't like about what I do, right? And that's okay, right? Because whatever they were able to contribute during the time here, I thank them and I take what they've contributed to me and my team, and then use that information again in a learning capacity, always being better. I had one exit interview one time. It was like, they didn't like that I didn't have an agenda for the meetings that I did. Okay. I'm like, I go back to the rest of the team. Hey, this is something that I was given this was an opportunity for me. Is this something that you guys want to do? I'm going to try and do this better. Right. It's a learning opportunity for me as much as it is for them. That's cool. But yeah, it's accepted. You'll accept a lot more resignations. You're not going to have to fire people.
There's so much hearing and listening that goes on in servant leadership, because it's interesting how servant leadership isn't defined by the loving energy as much as the hearing of the people and listening. Because like you said, even in a case where people have given you feedback that you really heard it and you're like, oh, this is being a servant means being servant to the vision.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. I want to say this distinctly because I'm kind of realizing this in real time, is that when we say servant leadership, we are saying you serve your people, but we're not saying we do that above the company.
Right.
That's probably the cleanest way to clear it up for people who don't understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like you're serving the common goal vision, which is the company first, then the team. And when we serve the team above the company, that's when we enable, that's when we create all the problems. And that's where people get this wrong. But when you serve the entity, the collective, what's best for all of us above the individual, but you still then serve the individual, the discussions change. And it's so funny because, Christina, you and I, we know each other pretty well, but I will say that like, I'm getting to know you a lot more, how similar we are. Yeah. I always told people two things about servant leadership. Number one is that surprises is the biggest indication of a drop in servant leadership. Yep. If I'm serving my employees, I am correcting them to the point where when I fire them, it's not a surprise.
Never a surprise.
Or vice versa. Like in your case, you were talking about the opposite case where they come to you and resign because you're like, yeah, I'm not surprised. I could see it wasn't working and we were talking about it already. Mm-hmm. I was hearing you already. Yes. The second thing is, and this is really key for my listeners, rock stars, I want you to really hear this, is that another component about servant leadership is that your commitment to the people goes beyond the relationship at work.
Yep.
And what this does for me in terms of freeing me up, guys, is next level. Because when I hired people, I would say this authentically, and they all told me this is the number one thing I used to say that really draw them in. Is I'd say, listen, my job here is to help you find your next job. If it's me when we're interviewing, I'm going to be loud that I am the best job option for you. But if I'm not, I'll tell you. And when you work for me, I will always be trying to help you find your next job. And I hope it's within my company, but it might not be. Yeah. My commitment to you is your long-term success in life. And for as long as it's here at Metro in this case, I want you to know I have a lot more impact that I can give, but doesn't mean that when you leave Metro, because look, we're adults, not everyone works together forever. Whenever you're gone, I'm committed to you for the long haul. When I would say that, they would just go, what the crap? Yeah. Like they would go, this is where I want to work. And that's why I think ultimately when I used to fire people, they either A, didn't know, they knew it was coming, or B, when there was like a little bit of like disappointment around it, we've had people we fire that would leave positive reviews the day after. Like, hey, I just want to know my experience working at Rise was amazing, and here's why. It's because they had someone who was committed to their long-term success. So I didn't just fire them. I was always like, let's talk about where you need to go next. And do you want to resign? I could fire you today if you just want to be like, or do you want to resign and then look for a month? And as long as you're working good, like we can, like, servant leadership is about the entity and the individual together in a win-win relationship. And I think that's the real powerful thing I'm learning from both of you as you're talking.
Yeah. And I do think that recognizing when somebody isn't buying into that servant leadership style or the culture of your organization, that I think you talked about this at the summit, is that like you know, one person that doesn't buy into the culture is more detrimental than somebody who is just learning it or just, you know, living it. But that one person can make such a huge difference, that recognizing when somebody isn't on your team and, you know, coaching them out is more important than, you know, than who you hire, right? So hiring's always a bet. That's one of my favorite lines, is like, you're taking a chance on anybody, right? Even it doesn't matter how much you talk to them in an interview process. It is a bet. You are betting that this person's going to be good at what they do. How you control the culture is who you don't keep on your team. So
I love that. I'm gonna here's some terms I'm hearing for the first time in my head as you're talking. It's like servant leadership does the same thing with a different mindset. So we should call it something different. So instead of firing, you said it, coach them out.
Coach them out. Yep.
We don't fire in servant leadership. We coach them out of the entity.
Yep.
And we coach them out and up somewhere else. Yep. We don't hire in a servant leadership model. We coach them in and up our organization.
Yeah.
And so everything we do, it's like we don't punish when people make mistakes. We coach the core solution to their ultimate success. That's a bad one. But like, there's all these different phrases. I think I'm going to come up with AI, like to come up with like, what are the different terms we can use? Because culturally, the language we use matters. And I think this is a way to help separate things. Yeah. So Vanessa, back to you. What do you feel personally has impacted you the most personally in being an organization that is servant led? What has that meant to you personally?
I'm a crier. I'm a crier. So I have really bad imposter syndrome, and I am so lucky to be supported with both Lori and Christina, because they give to me and they make me believe in myself, and I feel like I work harder because they believe in me, and I feel like they're counting on me, So I'm going to cry, but it holds me, them holding me accountable, them talking to me and coaching me up, like, I don't even have the words for it. It just means so much to me.
So powerful. Christina, what about you?
What I've been able to do, and personally and professionally here, has really changed my life completely. So I've always had this, the idea that what I've lived from my personal mission is I judge my success by the success of people around me, right? So being able to work at an organization where I am given the ability to have a team, to manage a department, to lead people, to where I know that, Vanessa is going to be successful here, right? I always say, not everybody's a lifer. Vanessa and I are lifers. We're in it to win it, right? And being able to really be a part of something and make an impact at so many different levels, being able to meet so many different people, and working in a company that is, still, locally owned. It's one person. How many people get to work in the same office as their CEO? Like talking about, working in retail, working for a global organization is fantastic, but my CEO was some person in an office in Kansas. I had no idea who they were, but being able to have a local impact, and just being able to see the success at so many levels, being able to see how our team has grown over the past couple of years, being able to be a part of something that is so important to so many people, parents that, have come to me and said, like, oh, I'm wearing a Metro shirt, right? They'll come to me, oh, I know Metro. I went there. My son went there. My daughter went. Like, that's amazing, right? Being able to have that autonomy to make decisions for my team and have that input, because if you want to be a servant leader, you have to work for a servant leader, right? You have to have somebody who thinks that that's a good way to operate and
Model it.
Yeah, you have to model it. So when, working for someone like Lori, she really kind of, I've felt like I've always kind of lived a servant leadership style. That's what I do. I'm like, I'll never ask somebody to do something I'm not willing to do myself, right? That's if somebody asked me what my management style was, it was that. Now I understand that it's servant leadership, because she was able to give me a voice to that and to show me that that's what this means. And, sitting in a leadership room and being like, Christina, what is your team doing? Right? This is what we're doing. Okay, great. Moving on to the next thing. So having somebody give you that much trust in, and you being a CEO yourself, well, you know that you have to trust the people to do the jobs that you're asking them to do, right? And knowing that we've been able to build this organization from that, and I've been a part of that, that's the most amazing thing. How could you not want to come to work every day?
It's transformational versus transactional.
Yeah.
Rock stars, as you're hearing this, I want to really highlight this idea of servant leadership being about transformation in the individual, the leader, and the company, versus transactional, which is any other type of leadership. We are stating boldly, Christina, Vanessa, and I, that servant leadership isn't just the best path, it's the only real path.
Yeah.
Because any leader's main function is to make more leaders. And what does that mean? It means growth, it means gratitude, and it means giving. Those three words, growth, gratitude, and giving, are defined as the key cornerstones to one word: happiness. So rock stars, if you want to be happier, if you want your team to be happier, if you want this other word called belonging, to belong to something greater than any one of us could ever do, it starts and ends with servant leadership. And I will tell you, when I sold my practice, Christina and Vanessa, the greatest surprise of my physical therapy practice was that the legacy I left, the thing that I miss, wasn't the money or the patient care. It was my team.
Yep.
The team is by far the greatest challenge to learn to develop and the greatest gift that keeps on giving. And the greater gift beyond that was learning that servant leadership not only made my company way more money and, of course, solved a lot of problems. It made my professional life happier. It turned me into a servant leader at home, where I was able to take my family and transform them into a team. So, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. Let's wrap it up with some rapid fire, really quick questions. Give me one word to describe a servant leader, other than servant and leader. How would you just think of one servant leader in your life right now who stands out? What's one word you'd use to describe them?
Unique.
And who is it?
Unique.
Who was the person?
Christina.
We're going to make Christina cry. Hey, Christina, who did you think of, and what's the one word?
So I was thinking Lori, and I'm actually going to use the word that Vanessa described me was authentic, right? Being authentic.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, Lori, I met her. She was my introduction into Metro at an event that I was speaking at, and she was in a room of 100 people, and her comments were the most powerful in the room and the most humble. And that kind of rarity isn't often that I see that. And I called her out. I'm like, tell me about your company. How many people you have? 500. I'm like, okay, here we go.
Oh, only 500.
So love that. Okay. What is like a piece of media that you've consumed recently that you just have loved? It could be a book, a TV show, a movie. It can be business related. It can be personal or fun. Like, what's something that you've consumed recently that you're just like, dude, that was so cool. I love that.
I have to go.
It could be a song.
I have to go.
Christina.
All right. So it is March Madness right now. And
heck yeah.
NCAA tournament. I am my family, huge sports fans. And there was a interaction between a coach and a player in the women's tournament about being
I saw that.
coached,
it went viral.
Yes, being coached hard. And that is, you can get, and Vanessa's going to love this, like, you can get in somebody's face and be like, I need you to trust you. I need you. She said, this isn't my story. I need you to step up. And that, the amount of team building and coaching that I get from the sports side of things is, coaching and sports, it goes hand in hand. But having that sort of impact on one person can really impact the entire team. So,
love that. Yeah. That was a great share. Vanessa, what about you? Movie, book, song, anything that's
I'm
coming to mind?
boring and I read a lot of medical journals. I just read an article about collaborative care, and we do that here, right? But we should be writing the articles, I feel like, because I think it really started with us. And it was pretty cool to see, like, a different company kind of their thoughts and ideas on it. And so that was interesting.
What's the name of the article? Do you know the name of the article?
Not offhand, no.
Well, you send it to me. I'll put it in the link in the bio of the show. Mm-hmm. Okay, fun question. Where's somewhere in the world that you have been that you loved or are excited to go visit?
This one's good for you.
I want to go everywhere. I am actually leaving for vacation in 3 hours. So I am anywhere that there's a beach. Take me to the sea. I want to be by the ocean, put my toes in the sand. So anywhere that can be possible. So I'm going to Gulf Shores, Alabama, starting tomorrow. So I will be
rock
there
and roll.
I'm so excited.
Congratulations. What about you, Vanessa?
Probably anywhere on the water. I like being in boats. So anywhere on the water. I've been on a few cruises. I liked those a lot. I'm not really picky. I'm a homebody. I like to stay at home. So
maybe the biggest place you want to be in the world is just your home.
Yeah.
Reading research articles.
Yeah. The best thing, to say this, best thing about Vanessa that I absolutely adore is if I ever have a question about something, I'm like, listen, I don't really know about this. Can you find out some more information? She'll be like on it. All of a sudden, like, just give her a topic and she will come back with, here's all the information for it. And here's the decision I need to make. I'm like, fantastic. So
she's your very own chat
she
GPT
is
right there.
I'm really like
called that before.
Yeah.
It's like before chat GPT.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. Okay, last question. The bigger impact for me is always the family. It's not lost on me that this is a moment in time that's going to be permanently recorded and out in the universe for your descendants to see, whether that's kids, nieces, nephews, I don't know, but like whatever those descendants are, they get to see you at this stage of life. What would you want to tell them about servant leadership?
Ooh,
I know, that's a good one.
yeah. I think that what I tell everybody, it's never a bad thing to invest in people, right? It's always a win when you invest time and energy into a person. So if you ever have the opportunity to learn more, to do more, to be better, then just take that opportunity. Every interaction you have with a person, you'll learn something. Every interaction that you have with your family, any interaction that you have ever, you can learn from it. And if you continue to learn, if you want to be a better leader, just be a better learner and understand that there's always something out there that you don't know.
Great. Thank you, Christina. What about you, Vanessa?
For me, it would be, serve other people as God serves you.
Powerful, to the point. You guys, thank you for being a part of the Willpower Podcast. Rock stars, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We are so grateful that you were able to partake in this beautiful conversation about servant leadership. I just hope you guys always remember that the person who's the best leader in the room is the person that loves the most. So as always, this is Will Humphreys thanking you for not only tuning in, but to remind you to lead with love and to never give up. Until next time.